The government is facing fresh calls for the UK's extradition arrangements to the United States to be overhauled so that British citizens have the same right as Americans.
Well, joining me now from Chesterfield is Julia O'Dwyer, whose son Richard faces extradition to the United States on charges of copyright infringement. And here with me in the studio is the international lawyer Michael Kaplan. Julia O'Dwyer, let's ask a little bit about your son's situation first of all. Why does he face extradition?
Richard set himself up a website as a hobby which provided links, a bit like a search engine, to other places on the internet where people could watch films and television shows and documentaries.
Well, yes, as I understand it, it provided links to sites where they could download these films and these television programmes, a lot of them American. So why are you fighting his extradition there?
Well, obviously I don't want him to be going there, and I feel strongly that his case should be dealt with in this country where he lives and where he has been at all times.
Why can't it be dealt with in this country? Is there a problem, in your view, with the extradition agreement as it stands?
Well, there definitely is a problem with the extradition agreement as it stands, and as we've been hearing today, because the report on the Joint Human Rights part of the review of the Extradition Act has highlighted some of those problems. But the main thing is that if America wants to extradite somebody from the UK, it just more or less has to ask, and the UK government will rubber stamp that process. If we in the UK wanted to extradite somebody from America over to here, then it would be a lot more difficult to do so. So the current process is not very inequitable in terms of the rights of UK citizens. They don't have the same rights as American citizens in this situation.
Michael Kaplan, is there a problem with this law?
I think there is. There is an imbalance. It is marginal. It's not as acute as some people think, but clearly it does need to be reviewed. The report today makes that quite clear. There's also a Home Office review going on at the moment, but there are other aspects in which there could be perhaps consideration improvements, such as the forum bar, so people could be tried here, an extension of human rights. All these are issues which I think have to be dealt with in extradition in general.
Well, that's right, because the Committee of MPs is saying that foreign criminals have more protection under the UK's human rights laws than innocent Britons or not fighting extradition.
Well, that's correct. In some circumstances they do. That's why the report today says that as we call them, Article 6 human rights should be extended, so there should be other considerations by the court when they come to consider extradition. But I think the most important thing to me is that the actual discretion of the Home Secretary should be extended. She has very little discretion at the moment to prevent extradition. I think that does need to be extended, and I hope that will come out of the review which is going on at the moment in addition to this report.
If it's a simple matter of a crime that if someone has committed a crime that would be seen as a crime in this country, can it not be tried here?
Well, the question, of course, is where did the crime occur? Now, clearly, if a crime occurred, for example, in the US and not in the UK, then the appropriate place for it to be tried is, of course, in America. However, America could, using that example, apply for someone's extradition at the moment and probably succeed, where a significant part of the conduct occurred here. Now, this is what should, in my view, change. It's been there available to be implemented for a number of years. There's no reason not to do so. It's called the forum bar, where in those circumstances, even though there is a request, if it's in the interest of justice, the trial could take place in this country and not in the requesting state.
Julia O'Dwyer, have you been given any kind of encouragement that any trial of your son could happen in this country?
Not personally, although the findings of the review are encouraging, and I certainly, and Richard on his behalf, will be canvassing for the forum to be enacted, and also for any current cases of UK to US extradition. I will be asking that they are put on hold until the whole review is completed and any amendments made that might need to be made as a result of that. I'll be canvassing through my MP.
Well, yes, and Julia O'Dwyer, have you had plenty of information from the authorities in the United States? When did you first know, for example, that your son was in trouble, and how much communication has there been since then?
I first became aware last November when some police officers and American agents went to question Richard about his website, and at that time then Richard was told to answer bail 6 months later, which I returned with him to answer his bail on the 23rd of May. We were told that the criminal investigation in the UK had been dropped. No charges were pressed in this country against Richard, but then he was told he was going to be rearrested and given an extradition warrant to America,
Michael
which
Kaplan,
was a very big shock, which we weren't at all expecting.
briefly, Michael Kaplan,
So
both the current coalition partners in the government, the Tories and the Lib Dems, were critical of the extradition law before they came into power. Are you surprised that nothing's changed?
I'm afraid it's the length of time. I'm not surprised it hasn't changed yet. I hope in the future the Home Secretary will have the courage to do so.
OK, Michael Kaplan, we appreciate your time. And Julia O'Dwyer, thank you very much for joining us and telling us about your son.